his work, Rick, we're going to have opposition sometimes. Because even our master, even the one that came before us, Mr. Michelle, he had people stand against him. They not only stood against him when they got a chance, they put him to death. And I'm going to get to that here in just a moment. We got up this morning with a thought on our heart, and it may take me a minute to get there, but I've got a point on this. So y'all pray for me here. We'll turn to start with in Exodus chapter 16. God being our helper, that we can read this. We'll start down in verse 4. Then said the Lord unto Moses, Behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a certain rate every day, that I may prove them whether they will walk in my law or no. And it shall come to pass that on the 6th day they shall prepare that which they bring in, and it shall be twice as much as they gather daily. Today, I want to read over in the book of St. John, chapter 6. Here where Moses was at, they was whining and complaining, and they was looking back. They had seen very many miracles. They had seen the plagues. They had seen the parting of the Red Sea, and it hadn't been very long, Sister Diane, they was starting to think about the flesh pots in Egypt, about how they was getting free food, how they was being fed there. And they didn't have to worry in their mind, Brother Tim, about their next meal. So God provided food. He provided the bread that rained down from heaven. And you read, I believe, Stanley, I don't think it was a cornbread.
No.
I believe it was a pellet flour-like substance that they was able to make into bread. They made it into several things, and it was able to sustain them. It was life-saving nourishment. Now let's go to John chapter 6. We'll start down verse 24. When the people therefore saw that Jesus was not there, neither his disciples, they also took shipping and came to Capernaum, seeking for Jesus. And when they had found him on the other side of the sea, they said unto him, Rabbi, when camest thou hither? And Jesus answered them and said, Verily, verily, I say unto you, you seek me not because ye saw the miracles, but because ye did eat of the loaves and were filled. Labor not for the meat which perisheth, but for that meat which endureth unto everlasting life, which the Son of Man shall give unto you, for him hath God the Father sealed. Then they said unto him, What shall we do that we might work the works of God? Jesus answered and said unto them, This is the work of God, that ye believe on him whom he hath sent. And they said therefore unto, What sign showest thou then, that we may see and believe? What dost thou work? And our fathers did eat manna in the desert, as it is written, He gave them bread from heaven to eat. Then Jesus said unto them, Verily, verily, I say unto you, Moses gave you not that bread from heaven, but my Father giveth you the true bread from heaven. For the bread of God is he which cometh down from heaven and giveth life unto the world. And then he said, they unto him, Lord, evermore give us this bread. And Jesus said unto them, I am the bread of life. He that cometh to me shall never hunger, and he that believeth on me shall never thirst. But I said unto you that ye also have seen me, and believe not. All that the Father giveth me shall come to me, and him that cometh to me I will in no wise cast out. For I came down from heaven, not to do mine own will, but the will of him that sent me. And this is the Father's will, which hath sent me, that all of which he had given me I should lose nothing, but should raise it up again at the last day. And this is the will of him that sent me, that every one which seeth the Son and believeth on him may have everlasting life, and I will raise him up on that last day. Today, we look 2 or 3 places here. And as we was talking in Sunday school about how we look at things in a physical sense, where Jesus was trying to get them to see, Brother Tim, that this physical body, this bread that they ate to see the 5 loaves and 2 fishes, that they seen that he could produce enough for all. And Brother Johnny, at this point, they was looking for him to feed them physically.
Yeah.
And Christ was telling them here that it is not a physical thing, this is spiritual. He was here to feed them spiritually, here to save them, here to give them everlasting life. All down through time, people have looked to the physical. I can't help but to bring up in Luke chapter 4, Brother Johnny, what was the first thing that the devil tempted Christ with? He said, make these stones to be bread. Christ had fasted for 40 days. And the old devil was trying to get him in the physical realm, trying to get him to think carnally. Each one of us today, we have to have certain things, and we all have to work. And we said before, Mother, how we make it harder on ourselves to survive. We keep buying things, we keep adding to our kingdom. You go to other countries, and as poor as we think we are, if you go to most other countries other than America, they would think that we are rich. And we are, Brother Bobby. You can look across the crowd, especially the men. You can tell we've not done without very many meals, or if any. I don't know, Tanya, you worry about poor John when you're going to be gone next week, or a couple weeks. And I figure he'll find something to eat. Because if the girls down at Big Daddy's are closed, he will find somewhere to get him something to eat. I'm sure you'll have something kind of prepared for him. You'll have a little extra stuff in the freezer that's easy to fix that he can do. That's what Carla does to me. She knows if it's just me there, Jesse, I ain't going to fix for myself. I might fry a sausage patty or something. But I'm not going to cook a meal like she would do for me. Today, we worry too much about the physical. We worry too much about how we are going to get by. And we bring it on ourselves. What we should be worrying about is Jesus Christ. Yep. He has set it forth. We know today that we should be worrying about furthering the kingdom. We should be worrying about our lost loved ones. We should be worrying about getting the life-saving bread to them. These people here just seen him feed thousands and thousands of people with baskets left over. And we talked about how big the baskets were the other day, Brother Bobby. I don't know how big they was. But if you said maybe the basket's like big enough like they hid Paul in when they lowered him down, that would hold a lot of bread. But to Christ, he didn't worry about that bread. He was trying to get out. He was trying to get the word out. And he even said it back in Exodus, so that those would follow his law or not. We must be looking for that bread of life, not the bread of this body. We must be searching continually. Why are we here today? Why did we come? Jesse, was it just to check the box so we could say we went to church today? Was it to get up here and sing our 3 songs and sit down? Sister Diana, are we here to serve Christ? Are we here to uphold God before this lost and dying world? Why are we here? We may be here for healing. I've come to church broken, Rick, in need of healing as a Christian. Keith, I've come broken spiritually, broken emotionally, hurting, looking for that healing. Jesus is the bread. He is that life-saving power. We talked about the priests the other day, about how clean they had to be, Brother Bobby, to go into the holiest of holies and make the offering. Because if they wasn't clean, what happened? Death.
Yep.
Sometimes we have to get ourselves cleaned up before we can help somebody else. Jesus Christ is the bread. He is the one. If we'll look to him, we'll never hunger and we'll never thirst.
Yep.
We heard, you go back to the woman in the well about that living water that floweth from Christ.
Yep.
We talk about being content in this world. Yeah, we tease about we don't want all the land, Brad. We just want the land that joins ours. Then you want the land that joins that. And it just never stops. Christ told them, Keith, to go out and not worry, not take a purse, not take a second cloak, not to worry how they was going to make it. You hear them old time preachers, John, how they would go to run a revival and not have a place to stay, probably not have money to go eat at restaurants, Brother Johnny, and God provided a place for them when they got there.
Yep.
God provided. I've heard stories, Jesse, about, I think Chad tells it about him and Lonnie going. And he said he went with Brother Lonnie, went somewhere to run a revival, and they got done, Brad, and he said people started leaving and they didn't have nowhere to stay. And so they got down to 2 people left there. Dennis, and one of them asked Brother Lonnie, he said, well, you just want to go stay the night with me? And Lonnie said, yeah. And they went and stayed with them. And John, I know Chad, as a young minister, was getting pretty nervous about where they was going to sleep. And I know Chad was getting pretty nervous what they was going to eat. But God will provide.
Yeah.
There's an old book that, I don't know if I still got it or we had it, talking about a preacher that rode around on his horse, running revivals. And how one night he got to where he was going and there was ice on his coat. How he had rode for hours and hours in an ice storm to get there to have church. Today, we are so spoiled that we don't want to get in our air-conditioned truck and drive on to church. Today we get so spoiled that we don't want to leave our air-conditioned house and get out in the heat. And Brother Tim, we don't want to walk from the truck to an air-conditioned pew. Jesus is the one that reached down for each and every one of us. And it's our duty to put him out there so others can see. It's our duty as Christians, Brother John, and we must be proclaiming Jesus Christ. We must be willing to take one on the chin for Jesus Christ. Because if you're truly proclaiming, if you're truly out there being peculiar, you're going to catch it every once in a while. Even unintentionally by other people. I get the opportunity to speak to lots of people. I had an opportunity to talk to a guy this week, and he was troubled and had a trouble the last couple of years. And I asking him, he was telling me all of his worries. And finally, Stanley, I asked him, I said, well, where do you go to church? Then he went to tell me all the churches that had hurt him. How he felt wounded from the churches. How he felt like Christians were mean. Sometimes we are. You've heard me say that Christians, if we ain't careful, we're like chickens. If one gets a little speck of blood on them, we'll peck it to death trying to help them.
Yeah.
Instead of loving them and seeing them through their hardships. Today, Christ is the bread. He is the life-saving bread. We are to point them to him and let him clean them up. He'll clean them up from the inside out. If we go to trying to clean them up, we'll tear it up. We'll tear up more than we can fix. Even with good intentions. Even with good intentions. Today we know that each and every one of us, we must be Christ-like. We must be here to do the will of the Father, not to our will. We must be here to be fed from the bread of life, not here for the bread. The crock pots smell awful good in there. I have to admit, I was in there and I was over fixing my mic at the sink. And there was one there, Johnny. I had to raise it up, see what was in it. It's a big old meatball, and it had Parmesan on top of it. It just kind of hit you right in the face when you raise that lid. It smelled good. Are we here for that? Or are we here for the bread of life? Jesus Christ. Today I love that in there. You can tell by looking at me. You all know me and have seen me. Ask JC. She sees me down there at Big Daddy. The little girls even know what I'm going to order before I order. I order that big old mess, John. And the little girls say, and add American cheese. I said, amen, add American cheese. It's just about what I had at home this morning. Johnny, Sister Carla fixes it up. And we spend too much time after that. It took up Carla's time this morning. It took up my time to eat it, Brother Stanley. Should we have been praying instead of eating and cooking? Boy, we can get rough on ourselves real easy right there. I had an old aunt. She's having a revival at Mossville, and they have it morning and night over there still yet. There's a couple of my young cousins sitting on the porch getting ready for the evening service, and she come in. She might have been a little grouchy acting. That kind of runs in our family. Me included. And Brother Johnny, they were sitting there on the porch visiting, and she come up through there and she said, "What did Chintz do today?" And one of them, he was real proud as a big cock. He raised up, he said, "We sat around, drunk coffee, and visited." He said, "We sang." And she said, "Well, you ever been on the hillside of praying for this revival?" And then she went off in the church house. Left them two boys sitting there pondering. Do we really get down and study and pray? Do we really get down and prepare for a revival? Do we really get down and get our hearts, Brother Bobby, clean and in shape for church? Are we searching the bread of life? Or are we just here for bread? The old devil was pointing out just bread. Are we here because we don't want Grandma to be mad at us because we missed church? Or are we here because we're wanting to grow in Christ? Are we here because Bobby would talk about us that we missed? Or are we here so we may pray and learn and grow, maybe see a newborn soul saved? Are we here because that's what we do, Keith? We get up on Sunday and we go to church. That's what we've always done. They talked about you, Keith, being a little boy running around this place. It was a long time ago. But Keith, is that the reason why we're here? Because that's what we always do. As a child, I always went to church. We didn't ask if we was going to church. Sister Diane, we knew we was going to church. Is that the reason I'm here? Am I here because that's what's expected? Are we here to have a portion of that life-saving bread of Jesus Christ? Life-saving bread. Most of us, if you cut us down to bread and water or bread and fish, we think we's in a terrible shape. A terrible shape, Bobby. It says 5 loaves and 2 fishes here in John. Those were barley loaves, I believe, if you read, which was most of the time horse feed. And them fish, and it says 2 fishes, them wasn't 18-inch walleye, Brother Stanley. Them was most likely a little old fish about like a sardine. This was a poor man's lunch, a poor boy's lunch that they had here. They had horse feed made into bread and 2 little old fish that we would use for bait. And God, Jesus Christ, took them and fed the multitude. We get up here and we worry about getting up here and singing. Afraid we'll mess up. You may be providing a poor man's lunch, Father. And what you provide is nothing on your part. But when God takes it and multiplies it and blesses it, then you will see it feed the multitude. That's the reason we're here, Bobby. You get up here and you think, is anybody listening? Today was a pretty good day. Everybody had a comment or something to say, even if it was just smart alecky. But some Sundays you get up here and you sit here and you talk and you talk and you look up. Is anybody listening? Would somebody say something? Yeah. But we're sitting there afraid to say anything. Afraid we'll be wrong. Afraid we'll misquote it. Well, if we're wrong, I pray that God covers it up. But He may have this little morsel that He's wanting you to give. Just a little morsel. Just a little piece of bread. And Brother Bobby, not that we have anything to do with it, but God can take that little piece of bread and He will multiply it and turn it into a service that's long remembered. Yep. Some of the best Bible studies I've ever seen was started by a question that somebody was scared to ask. Yep. Today, Jesus is the bread. He will take each and everything that we do. If we do it of Him, He can take it and He can break it apart. He can bless it and He can continually turn it into something that's good. If we're here for the right bread. Yep. We can be like the old devil, say, God, turn this into bread. Turn these stones into bread. Do it out of spite. Do it out of loyalty to me. That ain't the way it is. Jesus Christ is the bread. God sent Him down as that manna rained down from heaven so that we may live through Him. Because each and every one of us here, it says in James, born just a few days full of trouble. Just a few days full of trouble, Rick. To today, Jesus is here. Jesus is with you. Jesus is that bread of life. He is here. He is here to make sure that you're saved. He said those that are with him, he will, how is it? The last day, he'll raise them up. The last day, we'll all go home with him. Amen. The last day, we'll go home with him. Sometimes in this old world, when the things get to beating you up, you get worries and troubles. That last day can't come quick enough. Today, where do you stand? If today was the last day, would you be ready? If today was the last day, would you be able to go home? Could you look up and see him coming and rejoice today? Or would you cry for the rocks and the mountains to hide your face? Where are you today? I've been both places. Today, Jesse, I think I would run to Mickey. There's been days that I'd run from him.
Yep.
I have run from him as a Christian. I've ran from him. But him trying to bless me. Today, where do you stand? I beg of you today. I'll beg. If you don't know him from the free pardon of sin, or you've allowed something to come between you and him, that today is the day that you get it out of the way. Today is the day that you let the fear of man fall behind you. Today is the day that you look forward to eternity. Today may be the last day. Let's all stand this morning.